so that is me. 7:37, I think we've managed to give people ample time to join. The ones who join us later, they'll find us on way. Towards the end, we'll have like a recap session, so hopefully they can catch up during that session. So I think to start us off, let's start with a word of prayer. So all protocols observed, all religions respected. We'll pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for today. Thank you for gathering us here for this webinar. And as we start the webinar, we ask that you may open our minds and let us absorb the knowledge and to be able to apply it in our daily lives, and that we may see significant change even after this webinar. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Yeah, so brief introduction. My name is Linda Makatiani. I'm your host for today. I'm an investing coach and a financial literacy trainer. And this webinar is brought to you in collaboration with Choose, the savings app. So we work together to try and look at those areas where we can help Kenyans to be able to understand their money better. Because in as much as we are trying to get people to save, we want them to be able to save, and before that, be able to learn how to manage their money. Now, we've had 2 previous webinars, both around budgeting. So the first was just a basic introduction to budgeting, very good for beginner in the personal finance space, very simplified. And then we had the second one, which was now trying to get all of us to understand the different types of budgeting that are there, the strategies, so that we can be able to pick the budgeting method that is good for us. Because we are all different, we are all in different spaces, both personality-wise, financially, and all that. So it's always good to find out which budgeting method would be best for you. So during those 2 previous webinars, we had asked what other areas on the topic of budgeting would you want us to be able to cover and do a webinar on. And this one was the most requested, where we had people saying, we are not all on a regular income, so it would be good if we got a better understanding of how to manage our money even on an irregular income. Yeah, and that's why we are here today. So karibuni sana. And I think I'll just start us off. So I think to start off, it's taking us back to understand why budgeting matters. Why should we really budget? Whether you have a regular income, whether you have an irregular income, budgeting is very, very important. And the first bit is to understand that you can't really manage what you've not measured. You have to be able to know what's coming in, what's going out. You need to be in charge so that you can be able to understand how to manage it. And you're able to do that when you budget, because budgeting now puts you in a space where you're looking at everything that is coming in, everything that is going out. And because now you have understanding of all those, what's coming in, what's going out, then now you're able now to manage. So that's one reason why budgeting is very, very important. And as I said, regardless of whether you're on a regular income or an irregular income, whether you feel like you're earning very little, that you do not know even that little, you need to be able to manage that so that you can now look at opportunities to be able to grow that little that you have. Yeah. Second is that budgeting is a way for us to be able to live a debt-free life. Yeah. Because through budgeting, when you're budgeting, you're allocating funds you're giving your money work. So you're saying this money is going to be allocated to this expense. And when you do that, you're able to now put yourself to live within your means, to the point where now you'd most likely avoid debt. Or secondly, even if you do get to a situation where you have to take on debt, then through budgeting, you will be able now to learn to figure out how to manage that debt, because that debt becomes part of your expense. And because it becomes part of your expense, you are allocating funds to be able to manage it through your budget. And third, again, is budgeting helps us to safeguard our future. Because when you're budgeting, as we'll see, template for budget would be, you have your income section where this is money that is coming in, and then you have now the bit where the savings and investing, this is money that you're putting aside for any future financial obligations, planned, or any future financial emergencies that, you know, we are not aware of. But so when you're able now to put your finances in order, you're figuring out, how do I manage my money? Where do I locate my money? You remember again that we do not know what tomorrow holds. We don't know what's going to happen next year. So it's good to be able to put money aside. If we have any financial obligations that are coming up that we are aware of, we can start saving for them now. As well, for those emergencies that we do not know, if they do occur, we would be in a better position if we have saved. So that aspect of being able to save is made possible when you manage your money well. And managing your money well is being able to budget for your money. So those are the three key reasons why, to be honest, budgeting really matters. You know, you get to take control of your money. You either manage your debt, you avoid, it will help you avoid debt, or manage debt when you absolutely need to take on debt, and then to build like a solid financial foundation for your now and for your future as well. You know, through budgeting, you're able to take care of your current expenses, and you're also able to save for your future. You're also able now to start investing and growing your wealth for, you know, the long term as well. So three main things. So if you, maybe if you're here and you're wondering, and you know, maybe before you are wondering, why really should I budget? I'm hoping these three, or at least one or two of them, should convince you that budgeting is really, really important, because it's an enabler for this. Yeah. So as we said, today we are talking about how do we budget for an irregular income. And an irregular income is mostly for people who are in the gig economy. And I think just to start off, we try to understand better what is a gig economy. So this is a labor market that is characterized by short-term contracts, you know, freelance work, as opposed to having a permanent position. So you are an independent contractor, you are a consultant, you know, you have flexibility in terms of how many hours you're working, what you're doing, you take on the projects that you want to take, and therefore like a specific duration of time. And then maybe after that, you move on to something else. So in a nutshell, that is what the gig economy. And maybe just to get to see some of this is, if you're in the creative industry, you would fall under the gig economy. If, you know, graphic designers, social media managers, you know, now I think with the digital space, we've had an uprun of very many jobs coming through that you can be able to do as freelancers on a contract basis, on a consultancy basis, and all that. So it could be anything from delivery to, you know, Uber drivers, to coaching, which I also do. So all this falls under the gig economy. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of being a gig worker? So I think if we look at the advantages, you know, there's that independent aspect of it, you know, that autonomy, because I make the choice. I have flexibility on how many hours I want to work, dependent on if I have any other gigs, you know, like I am able to plan the gigs that I'm taking. And then I also have that flexibility for taking on different gigs. Unlike someone who's in permanent employment, you have a situation where you are the one who decides the projects that you want to take on. You can take on 2 or 3 different projects, and, you know, in a day, you can allocate 3 or 4 hours to do each of them. So you can do 3 projects in a day, as opposed to someone who's in permanent employment with a very strict contract that maybe prohibits them from engaging in other side hustles. So that becomes, you know, the advantage of being part of the gig economy. And then on now the disadvantage bit, which is one, what we are talking about, the irregular income, because then there is no that stability. I know even for the permanent employment, it's really not, there's really nothing that permanent about it, because you can be let go and everything. But for that duration that you're there, I am permanent and pensionable. But when it comes to freelancing, when it comes to consultancy and all that, there's that aspect of irregular income. Like if I'm doing this gig and I finish it, I'm not really sure when I'm going to get the next gig. Yeah. And there's also the lack of job security, because the job I finish, will my contract be renewed? Will it not be renewed? If I'm maybe pitching for this other gig, will I get it? Will I not get it? And there are also benefits that come with being part of like a permanent employee. So you're looking at maybe like health insurance, staff loans for the that extend staff loans to their permanent employees. So you might not get those benefits when you're on a contract basis. So now for us, is to be able to understand, yes, there's a beauty of being part of the gig economy, but there's also this other side. And it's not to say I would not do gig work because, the irregular income, the lack of job security. For us today is to try and understand. So the disadvantages when it comes to doing gig work, but how can I be able to counter that? How do I work around so that I can be able to manage even on that irregular income, even when I don't have that job security, I still have some level of financial stability and financial peace. And how can I also be able to provide for myself these benefits that ideally I would have gotten if I'd been in permanent employment? Yeah. And now that brings us to how do we manage our money when we are on an irregular basis? Now, this is a template of how the basic budget looks like, which is your income. This is income from all the gigs that you're getting. And then I am very big on saving and investing. So at least putting money aside, especially when as we said, you're on an irregular income, there's no job security. You are looking to see, can I be able to put money aside that can save me when I get to that point where maybe there's no gig coming through, I'm not getting any of these contracts. So you have the savings aspect. And then you have your expenses. And I will talk more about this because there are those expenses which you absolutely have to cater for. And then there are those ones where you'd want to do. Now, I guess the beauty of life is whether there's income coming in or income not coming in, the expenses, there are those expenses that are always knocking. And whether there's money or not, they expect to be paid. And most of the time, they expect to be paid on time. So to avoid at least financial stress and all that, it's to be able now to anticipate that and now be able to plan and manage your money so that if and when that time comes, you're well prepared for it. Yeah. So that's your basic budget. And then now we'll just break it down and try and see. So how are we able to manage our money even when we are on an irregular income? Now, the first thing that we need to do is to understand our income. This is very important. In as much as we have money coming in, one is to understand what's the source of this income. Note down all the various sources. As I said, when you're doing gigs, you can pick maybe 2 or 3 gigs, even in a day, and they would pay you maybe at the end of the week, in 2 weeks, sometimes monthly. If it's a contract, you get some money paid at the beginning, some percentage paid at the beginning, and then the other percentage paid at the end of the contract. It is very important. I would be very surprised to meet someone who has several gigs and they are not really sure when to expect money from which gig. So very important, understand the source of your income, where all these channels, where is the money coming from, which gig that you're working on. And for me, I would say this is where you have your Excel spreadsheets and all that. They become your best friends. You note them down, especially if you have more than 1 gig going on for you. If you're lucky enough for that 2 or 3, then it's good to note them down. Two is to note down how much are you expecting to be coming from this. Yeah. As I said, there's flexibility in the number of hours you're working. Part of the agreement, part of the contract would be you're getting X amount of money for this number of hours. So now it is for you to decide, for this gig, I would want to make, if I'm making 5,000 an hour, and I want to be able to make 20,000. So then I know I have to be able to put in at least 4 hours for this gig so that I can be able to get. Now, those 4 hours, do I spread them weekly? Do I do it in a day? So now that's, but it's to know that this is how much I'm expecting to get. Third is the frequency. When do you expect? Is it on a weekly basis? Is it going to be on a monthly basis? And I'm saying this, you do it, it could even be like just column wise. Where you see this is the money coming in. This is the source of the money. I'm doing photography for this. This is how much I'm expecting. If they're paying me half at the beginning and half when I deliver, then you also note that down. And then the last one is if there are any deductions. And this is very important because sometimes when you sign up for a gig, and you agree on the gross. So the gross is what are they going to pay you? And you're looking at it and say, maybe you agree, I'm going to get 50,000. But out of this 50,000, are there any deductions that are going to come from that? So that the net money that you will be receiving, and the net is what you're going to use to cater for your expenses, for your savings, and for your investing. So it's very important to know, yes, this gig is going to pay me 50,000, but if let's say, for example, maybe for that consultancy, you have to go into their office maybe once a week, and that once a week you end up eating the food that is brought for staff, and so now that is deducted from the money that they pay you at the end. So it's good to know those deductions, because you don't budget for the 50, you budget, if it's gonna end up being a net of 46, then you budget for that 46, because that 46 is what you are going to receive and you'll end up using. So very important, get time, track your income, get to understand where is the source of this income, how much is coming in, when is it coming in, and what frequency, and then are there any deductions, so that now that you use that to be able to understand your expenses. So that's the first bit, get to understand your income. Now, once we understand your income, we know the money coming in and there's money going out. So we are now trying to understand, so what are the outflows? So we've received this income. We have these expenses that we have to pay for. And as I said, these expenses come whether this month money has come in or money has come in half, or maybe even a quarter of what you normally get, the expenses would still come. Now, when it comes to expenses, it's good to know, so what are my fixed expenses? What are those essentials that I have to be able to cater for? This is basic needs. If you're living on your own, you're doing some freelance work and all that, how much are you paying when it comes to rent? Because you need a roof over your head. How much are you paying when it comes to your bills? And which bills do you have to pay for survival? It would be food, basic minimum, water, elec. If you're doing anything that if you're doing a gig that maybe requires you to have internet, is to make sure that also becomes now a basic, because then if you don't have, you won't be able to do the gig, you won't be able to get the income, you won't be able to cater for the expenses. So very important. And then now you're looking at, so what are all these other expenses, the variable expenses? And variable expenses come in two ways. One, you have those ones where you'd be thinking, these expenses that, yes, they are mostly wants. I want to be able to have this to make my life more comfortable, or maybe to enable me do my work better, but I can be able to do without them. Yeah, that is the key thing here. And then you have those variable expenses which are like one-off expenses. Maybe I have this laptop that I'm using, but I know maybe it needs to be worked on and I need to take it. So I will need maybe to spend 3,000 or so in a month so that I can have it optimized. So that is a one-off expense, but it's still an expense that you need to be able to cater for. So it's be able to group your expenses, know the ones that are basic, very essential, and then the ones that are yes, they make your life comfortable, but you don't really need to have them. When push comes to shove, if the income that's coming in is not enough to cater for them, those will be the first expenses to strike off your budget or the expense section. Yeah. So know your income, and then now recognize this is where my money is going. So now, once you're able to understand those two, because that's the basic, and when I say expense, I mean as well, now you figure out the money that you're able to put aside for saving, yeah, which is very, very important. I think we'll talk about it towards the end as well, how we can be able now to protect ourselves from the irregular income that we are getting. So then how do we budget for our irregular income? Yes, I've taken time, I've understood the source of my gigs, all of them. I know when to expect this money, how much I'm expecting, and I know the net amount that I'm expecting to receive, which is less any deductions that are coming through. I have looked at my expenses and I've grouped them. I know these are my basic essential expenses, and these are those expenses make my life comfortable, but I don't really have to have them. I've done that. So now I'm going to work on my budget. How do I do it? So the first way you can do it is to do what we call priority budgeting. This one, you're looking at, I want to create my budget, but I'm looking at my budget from a perspective of the lowest income month that I've ever received. So if, let's say, January you got 50K, February you got 70, March you got 50,000, at some point in May you got 40,000. So if you track, and tracking is very important, please, I think I cannot stress enough, especially on an irregular income. We said you have to learn, you cannot manage what you don't measure. So measuring, part of measuring is to be able to track. So you track how much is coming. And then now when you look at it, maybe on 3 months or 6 months basis, you're like, the lowest month, the income that has come in, let's say it's 40,000. So now that 40,000 becomes your base, and you're telling yourself, I'm going to work and do a priority budget. And my priority budget is going to be based on this 40,000, if that is the lowest you've earned for the past 6 months. Yeah. Because now what this one does, it enables you to get that survival tactics for even in your lowest month, you're able to afford your basic needs. Yeah. So when you're working on your budget, your income would be that 40,000 because that's the lowest you've earned for the past 6 months. And then now this 40,000, you allocate it and you see. So if this is all I had, you know, as we normally say, mbele nyuma, this is all I have. What would I need? What are the things that I have to cater for? What are the expenses that I have to pay for? And then now you work on your budget. So this means that when you reach the point of, because again, the bit of irregular income is you'll have months where you make a lot, you'll have months where you make very little. So for the months that you make the 40, you are okay. For the months that you make more than 40, you're still okay. Yeah. So that's the beauty of priority. So priority budgeting, you're looking past 6 months, the lowest income, and then you use that as your base to budget. That will help you be able to survive even on your lowest income months. So that's the first one. So the second way to budget is to budget on an average income. So again, you take those first 6 months. Jan, you got 50,000. Feb, you got 70,000. March, you got 50,000. April, maybe you got 60. May, things were slow, you got 40,000. In June, you got your 60,000. So when you add all that up, you get maybe on average for those 6 months, you've earned about 330,000. Now, on average, every month, you're earning about 55,000. Yeah. So now you use that as your base. You say, okay, fine. If on average I'm making 55,000, the amount I will make higher, the amount I will make lower. So then can I now base my budget on this average income that I'm making? For all of them, for all this, you'll realize it's just getting you to be prepared for those months that you are on a low income month. So with this one, you're working, your budget, your base income is your average income. Now, the next one is zero-based. This one, we spoke about it even during the budgeting methods. This one is where every shilling that you're earning, you're allocating a job to it. Yeah, it's out to do something. Either it is going to pay an expense, either it's going to pay a debt if you've taken maybe a loan, either it's going to your savings, you know, like it is allocated so that at the end of it, there's zero. Now, the beauty of this is you're able now to allocate money to all these to all these spaces where, you know, I have money for my savings, I have money for my expenses, and if I have any debts that I'm paying, I'm able to pay them. Yeah, and because you are doing that, then that avoids situations where on a low income month and you are trying to, you know, pay maybe your debts, your bills, you have situations where now the bills are piling up because you're not able to, then you're not able to cater for those expenses. So it's just being able to know you are allocating money for every single shilling that that comes your way. So there's no money that is left hanging anywhere. So those are like the three main ones. But what all the three of them enable you to do is for you to say, you know, to be able to cater for your low income months. I call it the, you know, milima na mabonde. So you are able to budget based on your income pattern. The core of this is to be able to understand that on an irregular income, your budget has to be very, very flexible. Yeah. I know for during the budgeting methods, we talked about the 50, 30, 20 and all that. But when you're budgeting on an irregular income, the level of flexibility needs to be there because, again, even your income, how to say it's flexible, you have the high income months and the low income months. So what normally happens if you're using the priority budget, if you're using your average income, if you're going on the zero-based budgeting, the essence of it should be that for those months, for the months where maybe you've budgeted and you're saying, for my lowest income months, this is what I'm using. For the months that you make 70 and you have some 20 or 30,000, please allocate that to your Valley account. You know, put it in the Valley account, because then you will reach a situation where you will need that Valley account to save you. Yeah. So let's say your budget is on 40,000, but you have this, maybe you got an extra gig and you made some extra 10, 15,000. That 15,000, instead of now looking for expenses to utilize the 15,000, it's looking for ways of putting that 15,000 aside. And I think we'll talk on that more. Putting that 15,000 aside so that when you get to that point where maybe there's a month that you're back to that 40, or you're even less than 40, because this, you know, these things do happen. You get a 35, you're able to borrow from that Valley, you know, from that Valley account, because it's being cognizant of the fact that there are some situations where you will have budgeted for 40, but only 30 comes in. You know, with this our economic situations nowadays, we're not really sure, and especially if you're in the gig economy. So I am hoping this is very clear. If I'm budgeting on, let me just repeat that bit. If you're budgeting on 40 and you happen to have a month where 50 comes in, that 10, please don't allocate it to other expenses. First priority should be to allocate it to your Valley account, which is your savings account, basically, so that it can save you on the months where maybe even that 40 is not coming through, you're getting less than that 40. Very, very important. Yeah. So how do we do that? One is to be able to create what we call an emergency fund. Yeah. So we understand we're tracking our income, we are tracking our expenses, we are trying to budget and keeping ourselves on what I would call a very tight budget, budgeting on like the lowest income month, basing it on the lowest income month. And even with that, on the months that we have good income inflows, then we build what we call an emergency fund. Because as we said, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen next month. In as much as you're willing and ready to do a gig for the next 6 months and earn, you don't know if you'd have those opportunities to be able to do that. So it's building a buffer against that, and that is building your emergency fund. So you make it a priority. When you're on an irregular income, an emergency fund is a priority. You know, this is a saving fund that will save you for those months. And how you do that is to be able now to look into the saving options that are there. Open a money market fund, you know, save with chums, where you're able to put your money aside. And the beauty of both is you're saving that money, and that money is not just sitting there. So if I put my 5,000 and next month maybe I get an extra 6,000 and I add, now I have 11,000. So it's not just going to sit there as 11,000. What happens is that money compounds. So the 5,000 that I had put maybe in the month of August, because my budget was 40, I got 45. I've decided, let me stick to just spending the 40. That 5,000, I'm going to allocate it into my savings. You put that 5,000 into savings. In the month of September, I get maybe a good gig and I get an extra 6,000. So I'll add. When I'm adding this 6,000 to that savings account, that 5,000 that I put in August has earned some interest. So it's not just sitting there. So when I'm saying building an emergency fund, here I'm trying to encourage you to steer away from putting money just to sit in a bank account. The best avenues would be to have it in a money market fund, you know, look for the savings options that are there. Chums is one of those, and the several money market funds that are available as well. Because that 5,000 that you've put compounds, it earns interest. So that by the time this 6,000 you're adding onto it, that 5,000 now has grown maybe to like 5,100 or 5,150. So now you have 11,150. So that money is sitting there and it's working for you. I think one of also do a session just to get you to understand how that whole process of putting, you know, saving, how savings actually works compared to putting your money sitting in a bank account. So, and building an emergency fund is a priority. I cannot stress that enough when it comes to when you're figuring out to manage your money on an irregular income. Yeah. The other way is figure out, we're looking for ways to get you to keep budgeting. Because as I said at the beginning, you need to be able to track your income and track your expenses. And basically when you do that, you're budgeting. And I know for most of us, it would be you start budgeting and at some point you feel like, no, I don't feel like I have enough money to budget and all that. But sometimes if you look through budgeting apps, then it becomes easy for you to even just get like a snapshot and see, when it's digitized, you're able to bring up a report and you're able to see, okay, so this is how my expenses have been for the past 3 months. This is how my income has been for the past 3 months. And what I like about being able to do that on a consistent basis is you do reach a point where now when you're looking at your income and you're looking at your expenses, you start asking yourself, for the months that maybe I got, for the high income months, what did I do? And is it something that I can try to do it repetitively so that I can, aim to have more high income months than the low income months? Yeah, you challenge yourself like that. For these expenses, when you look at your expenses, you're always able to see, if I am really in a very tight corner, is there anything else that I'm willing to cut? So you're able to anticipate that. And if in case that scenario does come through, you're able to manage. So that's the beauty of having, trying to use a budgeting app. I am for basic Excel, it doesn't have to be, but if nowadays we all have smartphones and everything, so if you can be able to do that, get a budgeting app. I use one called Money Manager, and you're able now to just, every time you spend something, you put that as an expense. Anytime money comes in, you put that. Then you're able now to bring out that and see, so what has my income been like, what has my expense been like. But if not, even Excel is very good. Key thing is to make sure you keep tracking your income and your expenses so that you can be able to learn the pattern. When do I make money? Which months am I likely to make more money, or which months am I available? Which months do I feel like these are my low income months, so that now you even brace yourself beforehand for those ones. Again, as I said, when it comes to managing your money on an irregular income, flexibility is very key. Yeah. Do take time to just review, and you can only review what you've been able to put down, to account for. So again, the tracking bit is very, very important. Whether you're doing it on Excel, whether you're doing it on an app, for you to be able to review, you need something to review. So it's good to be able to note down everything that you're doing. I know sometimes it takes a bit of time, but especially if you're on irregular income and you're independent on your own, you're the one who's paying your own bills and all that stuff. It is good to be able to do that. It will save you a lot of financial anxiety and financial stress if you're able to do that. If at all at some point, again, as we said, you get some bonuses, or you get some, you've done a good job and someone gives you something small to say, thank you, I appreciate the work that you've done. And that is besides the money that you've budgeted for. Again, let me stress, please, let it go into your emergency fund. Let it go into the money, into your Valley account, that saving account that's going to save you on those low income months. Yeah. So in a nutshell, before then we're able now to engage more on questions, is one, we've said, your income, understand your income patterns. Which months am I likely to make? Because most of the sectors in the economy have like a pattern. If you're in the tourist, the tourist sector, then there are those months where this is the month where if I am in that industry, I'm able to get tips, I'm able to get jobs, and all that. Then it goes through a phase where it becomes a bit quiet. So you maximize on those months so that you can make the most. But you're only able to do that if you take time now to understand, these are my income patterns. This is how much I'm getting, when I'm getting them, and where I'm getting them from, and all that stuff. We talked about expenses, being able to track your expenses and putting them as, categorizing them. What is your most basic, essential, cannot do without, and then now the ones where are variable, but even the ones which may be a one-off here and there. And then 3, we talked about saving. Very, very important. Have that Valley account, open that Chums account, have that money market account, so that when you get those small boosts here and there from your gigs, you're able to put. And for those months where it is even lower than your low income months, then you're able to cater for even your basic expenses. And again, as I said, take time to review. Flexibility is very key. Review and see, because even your average or your low income changes with changes in the economy and situations around. So you're able now to adjust your budget accordingly. So key for me is to embrace the flexibility, seize the opportunities. In as much as we've seen, there's the lack of job security, the irregular income, there's a lot of opportunities in the gig economy. When you're looking at your income, you're trying to look at the patterns and saying, as we said, for the high income months, what did I do? So where are the opportunities in that one. You can be able now to put yourself out there, try and get more gigs so that you can make more and all that stuff. That opportunity is there, which might not be there for someone who's in permanent employment. But it's always, for me, I say, the positive mindset goes a long way, especially when you're working to manage your money and on an irregular income. Yeah. So even as you are reviewing, even as you're going through your low income months, I believe once you've taken time to measure, to track, and you've put some money aside, even for those low income months, or even months which there's, the money that has come in is even lower than what you had expected, you're still able to manage in a bit, as opposed to if you had not done anything at all. If you had not taken time to understand your income, if you had not taken time to figure out your expenses, if you had not taken time to create that discipline for you to be able to cater for you to be able to put some money aside to cater for any of those low income months that are coming in. So that is it for that. Normally, I think here I would just want to say we are all very different. We are all in different sectors which operate differently and behave differently, have different patterns. So it's just looking through all this and try to see, for me, it might not be the same as someone else. And that's why, I don't go deep into examples, because we all have different circumstances. But this is generic, it's very helpful for all of us. So at this point, I'm happy to take any questions. Those are our details for myself and for Chums. I'll look through the questions. Okay. Yes, so Fiona says, thought it means if you budget based on average income, then on your lowest month, you have a deficit and you would have to dig into your savings. Yes, because normally, even on that average income, there are months that you will make less than that average. Even on your lowest income, there could be months where you'd make lower than even that low income. And that's why, again, as I said, having that Valley account, that buffer, your savings, is very, very important. It will be able now to come in handy when you have to dig into your savings, because the money that you've made maybe for that particular month is not even enough to cater for your basic expenses. But I think key here as well is to understand that it is basic expenses. So if let's say my lowest month is 40 and I've based my budget on that 40, and if I make 35 or maybe even 30, it's to understand, I've already taken time to understand what are these essentials that even though I've made 35, I cannot do without paying, but I have had months where I've made more, so I've put there's some money I've put aside. So, and that now comes in handy for us to, for you to be able now to use to cater for your basic expenses. So for us in the gig economy, what should be a reasonable target for emergency fund? Most people advise about 6 months of basic living expenses. Should we target higher than this or the same? Now you'd be looking at, I would say, yes, if you can, 6 months or higher. And again, when it comes to emergency fund, it depends on your financial situation. And so if you're single and you're on an irregular income, so your target ideally should be at least 6 months, but this would be 6 months of your essentials. So don't overly stress yourself. Yes, that becomes your target. Break it down. Every time you get anything extra, put it into that savings account, but we'd work for 6. If you're in the gig economy, your income is irregular, but you have a family, so then that means whether you're for your low income months or your high income months, there are those expenses. Your essentials are slightly more than for someone who is single. Maybe you have school fees, you have to feed your children, you have to have some money there for in case you have any medical emergencies. For that one, I would say aim for at least 6 to 9 months. But again, it's to be able to, what is key is to be able to track and see what are my essentials, even for me, not just for me alone, it's for me and my family. What are the essentials that are there, the basic on a monthly basis that I'm able to do, and then now try and go a bit further. So, 6 to 9 months, because again, you can have a situation where maybe you don't have a gig, but the family is still there, the expenses are still there. Maybe there's one-off expenses from the children that you need to be able to cater for. So it's good to be prepared for that one. So for that, I normally recommend, when you have a family, please try and work with maybe 9 months. Again, key is to build it slowly, you know, put it up as priority, but build it slowly. Miriam, so any the question? Fiona. So if you have any questions just on this, please do share them on the chat. I can be able to answer that even as we finish, but my contacts are there. The contacts for Chums are there. I'm not seeing any, but let me just go through some that we had, or on the questionnaire we had asked. What's some of the biggest challenges when it comes to, you know, managing your irregular income? And one was saving consistently. Yeah, because as I said, you know, we are all humans. At times, on those high income months, that is when we start thinking of, I want to do this, or I want to go there, here, and all that. So it's always good to, because saving becomes a habit more often that you do it. And I always say, have a savings goal. Yeah. So as I think Fiona had asked again, it's how you're looking at, in my emergency fund, what amount do I? So if my essentials amount to 30,000 or 20,000 every month, so then that means even on my lowest month, I would need 20,000 to be able to cater for everything, for my essentials. So then I would be looking at, if I need to have 6 months of that, so I'm looking at 120,000. So having that as your goal, like I want to build it to reach this, can help you develop that habit of, and especially the discipline and the consistency to keep doing it. Because, you know, you keep looking and seeing, okay, now I'm on 10,000. You know, let's soldier on. Next time you get 5,000 or 6,000, you know, you are more likely to think, let me add it to that because I'm trying to get to that 120,000, as opposed to just saying, yes, I know I need to have an emergency fund for the days or for the months that I will not have any money. But if you're working with like a target, you have an amount in mind and you know, this is what I'm working towards. Anything small you get, you just find yourself, it becomes a habit. You find yourself, you know, going into your Chums account and putting that money there so that you can be able to grow. Okay, so Aworas, if you use a Milima na Mabonde method, how do you determine your lowest average income for saving? Now you'd look at that, as I said, very key is to be able to track. The only way you're able to get your average is if you track the money that is coming in. Yeah. So you're looking at it from maybe from January to June, or maybe even January to March, if you want to base it on average of 3. So in those 3 months, what did I earn in month 1? What did I get in month 2? What did I get in month 3? And then you add all that up, and then you divide it by for the 3 months. So then that means on average, for each of those 3 months, I earned this 45,000. Yeah. So, and now when you're using that, you're telling yourself, yes, I will have months I will earn less than that 45. I have months that I will earn more than that 45. So if I earn more than that 45, that is, you know, my the value month. So I am going to put money in the surplus that I have is going into that savings account. And then anything, so that for the months that I am down there, I'm on the 2 hills, I know, well, here I can be able to pinch a bit from the savings to cater for my basic expenses. How can I get previous recordings on how to budget? Oh, so the recordings, this one is also recorded. So the recordings are, I share them on my YouTube channel, Finance for Families. So if you can check that on YouTube, you'll be able to get the recording as well. Once this is done, I'll be able to set it up there as well. So Laura asks, if you're taking up insurance policies for a child's education, is that considered as a saving? Yes, because you've included it into your budget, and at some point, this it is going to come in handy. So that also becomes, and I think that's one of the beauty, the advantages of the insurance policies, is because on a monthly basis I need to put that 2,000 aside into that education policy, or 3,000. And once you get now used to that, it becomes a habit. So they help you build that habit of being able to save, because then once you finish paying for that policy and it matures, then that money now goes towards that expense, your child's education expense. So yes, it is a form of saving, and it does help you to also build the saving habit as well. Okay, any other question? We still have 3 or so minutes to be able to take up any question. I think from this point, let me just stress again, we will schedule a webinar on just getting people to understand more about creating an emergency fund and how to be able to manage and save for your emergency fund, what figures to look out for. But I really did like Fiona's question on how much you need to put aside when it comes to your emergency fund. But very, 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 very important. So work that one out, 6 months. But key again, because I think from my space, I've seen people really stressing out because you're looking at it and thinking, oh my God, now I have to come up with 120,000. Where will I, I'm on an irregular income. But the key to remember is you're building it slowly. So it just builds up. So Laura asks, what is the difference between, very good, an emergency fund and a sinking fund? And should I have both? I would say yes, priority for emergency fund. Now, an emergency fund is for you to be able to, you're setting money aside for future emergencies. A sinking fund is you're putting money aside for future planned financial obligations. So I am doing several gigs. I know at some point, maybe I would want to upgrade my laptop, or I would want to upgrade my camera so that, now I can be able to offer, even if I charge more for my photography or videography, someone will be able to pay. So maybe there's something that has come out and you're like, I need to upgrade and get that one. It will cost you some amount. Now, you don't have to be able to buy that one now. So what you can do is you can create a sinking fund and say, I need to upgrade my camera because if I upgrade, this is how maybe I'll be able to get more gigs and make more money. How much will that cost me? It's going to cost me maybe another 30,000 if I trade in what I have and then I put in more money, something like that. So I have to come up with 30,000, not now, but now I can plan for it. So I would have a sinking fund, and this sinking fund is where I'll be putting money aside. So now on your budget, when it comes to your savings column, you'd be having your emergency fund. The emergency fund, as we said, you've worked out and said, on a worst case scenario where I'm looking for these gigs, there's no contract that is coming in, and I can't be able to get any gig. I will have to dig into my emergency fund. This is how much I would need on a monthly basis, that 20,000 up until I'm able to get some money. So that comes from your emergency fund. Then, so you're putting money aside. Every other month you get something, you allocate priority to emergency fund. But then again, here you are trying to upgrade this so that you can earn more. Remember we said every time you look at your income, to understand better, you're also looking at what other opportunities are there. So if there's an opportunity, but that would come at a cost, then that becomes a planned expense. So I say I need to get maybe 30,000 by December. So if I need to get to 30,000 by December, then that means for every gig, the gigs that I'm doing, I am looking to maybe take in more hours and then I am locating part of that money into my sinking fund, so that in December, this sinking fund can enable me upgrade my camera, upgrade my laptop, for me to be able to now harness those opportunities where I can earn more income. So emergencies, for future financial emergencies that we don't know, it could be a medical emergency, it could be now maybe when you're not getting any gigs and you have to dig into that pot. Sinking fund is planned. I know I need to get this. This is how it's going to add value to me. This is how much it costs. Let me plan for it. And then now you pace yourself to be able to save for it. So you save for it in a sinking fund. Yeah, so that's the difference between the two. You can have both, but give priority to the emergency fund. Okay. Thank you. Any other question? So as I said, I will have this up on my YouTube channel. You can be able to access it hopefully from tomorrow. What we have there as well is the previous two that we've done on budgeting as well. So if in any case you missed those two on the basics of budgeting and budgeting methods, you're able to access that as well. So thank you very much. My contacts are there. Do reach out in case you, at some point in the evening, you're going through the webinars and you think, oh, I should have asked this. You can be able to reach me. My email is there. My number is there. We can have a conversation around budgeting. I do budgeting coaching, just getting you to understand how to manage your money, the savings options, the investing, and all that. So do reach out and we can be able to talk more on those ones as well. Again, let me take this chance to say thank you to Chums for coming through and partnering on this to just empower us to understand how we can be able to manage our money better. And do check them out and see. That's one of the very good avenues you can be able to save your money, and they do it in a very nice gamified way as well. Very convenient and easy on your phone. So if someone sends you M-Pesa to tell you thank you, before you decide to do something with it, you know, swing it and put it in your Chums account. But for me, I think it's just to say thank you to the Chums team for coming through and partnering on this one so that we can empower more people out here with knowledge and get us, you know, managing our money better and improving our financial situations when you're out here. But thank you for everyone who's joined us today. Do reach out and we hope to engage you in the other webinars that are coming through. If you do think of a topic that you'd want us to cover on a webinar, please do share. My email is there, consult@financeforfamilies.com, and then we can see what we do about it. But thank you very much and do have a lovely evening.